Hello, Top Fan Rivalry followers, supporters, and welcome to Friday. Yes, that means it is weekly review time. That is me, Bill. That is Jackson right there. If you're listening to this on Bleach Brothers Radio Network, you know that we have faces for radio at that point. If you're watching us on YouTube, thank you. Hit that subscribe button right there. Do it. We'll keep you going tonight, Jackson. We've got plenty to talk about. What would you like to lead off with, Jackson?
Uh, just a note, I need it to stop raining in Pennsylvania because I hate cutting my grass. But
Well, on that note, thanks everybody for joining us. Happy Friday. It's been good to have you on here. We'll keep moving on.
I think I'm going to start with one that would usually be an honorable mention, but the passing of Dave Parker, Hall of Famer, this past week. Uh, One of the coolest nicknames of all time, the Cobra. Dave Parker was a really good baseball player for a really long time. Just missed out on 3,000 hits, but racked up 2,700 hits, almost 1,500 RBIs, career 290 hitter. He will be missed. Really, really good player.
Really good player. I was disappointed that it took him till the Veterans Committee to get in. I know why that was the case. I mean, obviously there was some scandal around his years in the Pirates organization. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
So I know why it took so long to get him in. I don't like it though. I mean, I think he should have been in the years that he was eligible.
Yeah. And honestly, with two seasons, his age 30 and his age 31 season being shortened seasons essentially, for
Hmm.
him to put up those kinds of numbers, crazy. Really good player,
Well, yeah,
for really
it.
good
I
teams.
mean, shortened season in '81, shortened season in
82.
'82. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's crazy. Good call on the Cobra. Good call on the Cobra. My number one is going to be a little less somber. Congratulations to Clayton Edward Kershaw in getting his 3,000 strikeout 2 nights ago. I watched it. Jackson, you're going to appreciate this, but I was doing an X Live and commentating the game, and a couple people would come on, they'd jump off it. So I was talking to myself a lot, right? And it was actually funny because we had Pageant of the Masters tickets with some friends, and the fifth inning had come and gone, and he had like 75 pitches. And I figured Dave's not going to bring him out there for another one. He's two strikeouts away. So I go over to the patch of the Masters, walk over to the patch of the Masters, get inside, and my phone, I get a text message, he's one away. And I'm like, crap. So obviously Mikey's streaming the game. So I put it on. I'm watching the patch of the Masters, watching the game, watching the game. It was awesome. But congratulations, Clayton Kershaw. Your thoughts on Clayton Kershaw and or his season? I mean his
Only the
career.
third. I mean, the third player to ever get 3,000 strikeouts with one team. Uh, it's a club of 20. It's probably not going to get much bigger. So really, really, really impressive that we've had so many pitching dominant eras of baseball. And there's still only 20 pitchers, 3,000 strikeouts. It's you know Kershaw is the best left-hander of his generation.
One
Um,
thousand percent.
what?
1,000%. 1,000%. He is one of the best, if not the best, in his generation. I mean, that bender that he has, that curveball, that slider. I mean,
Like I know he's had injury problems like the last half decade, but like come on, guys.
yeah. And
Prime Kershaw was an easy 7 innings scoreless,
mhm.
9 strikeouts, easy.
Well, when you look at this too, if Kirsch was 100% healthy, 100% healthy his entire career, might he have broken 4,000 last night?
Probably.
I mean,
I mean,
I'm not gonna.
considering a lot of this time that he missed was in his early 30s,
Yeah.
which is still good, really good for pitchers, especially ones of his repertoire. There were times he threw hard, but Kershaw is predominantly a breaking stuff pitcher.
Hmm.
It would have translated. That's why it's translated so well with age. He's still able to go out there and you know get big league hitters out. That's not an easy thing to do without a big fastball. So
Yeah. At age 24, he sat out a little bit because he had 27 starts. At age 33, I'm sorry, at age 27, he had 33 starts. And then at age 28, he had 21, then 27, then 26, then 10, which was the COVID year, then 22, then 22, then 24, and seven last year, then nine so far this year. So honestly, if he is able to keep starting pace of, we'll just call it 33 games through some of those years where he had 21, 27, 26, 22, 22.
It adds up to like another 40, 50 starts.
Yeah. And, if you're talking another 50 starts,
Another,
averaging, say, six strikeouts a start,
yeah,
it's another 300. I mean,
right there, easy. Yeah.
anyways, congratulations, Clayton. What do you got number two?
Number two, I brought it up before we started recording, but another big bat to the home run derby. Cal Raleigh is going to participate in the home run derby. Now we're going to see James Wood participate in the home run derby. James Wood doing his best Barry Bonds impression over the weekend, getting intentionally walked four times in one game by the Angels. We talk about him every week because he's really good. He's got 22 home runs already, 387 on base, 547 slugging. Uh, Criminal. I am disappointed in all fan voting everywhere that he did not make it to the final phase of All Star voting for fan voting. He should probably be an All Star starter.
1000%. I,
Honestly,
I, and this is no disrespect to your guy, Ronald Acuna. But I honestly think that if you haven't played a certain number of games, it's like Mike Trout. When Mike Trout got elected as the starting center fielder a couple of years ago, and he had played like 9 games and was out and wasn't even going to participate in the game.
it, it it is a popularity contest. There is the narrative. Acuna starting in Atlanta. I'm cool with it, but
Mhm.
we gotta fit James Wood in there somehow.
Yeah, I don't know.
The,
I
the,
don't know.
the dude's hitting out of his mind.
James Wood's going to be really good. I got a bunch of his rookie cards here. When we do our box breaks, we don't get a lot at all. A lot of people ever buy into the Washington Nationals, and it's tough. And so I've got a bunch of Dylan Cruz, a bunch of James Wood rookie cards, and I have a sneaky suspicion that those bad boys are going to be worth some money here in about 10 or 12 years for show.
Financial retirement.
Yeah, yeah, for show, as they would say, for show. So, anyways, good call on the home run derby there. I want to, for my number two, I want to mention something that happened last night. And I say this all the time. This has nothing to do, it almost sounds like I'm being a homer, right? Here, and it has nothing to do with this. And I hate it when I see people get injured. I want to beat your best team. I want to field my best team. But I don't know if you saw her last night, but runner tries to steal third, runs into Max Muncy's knee. Not malicious at all. Max may have been a little out of position, but maybe not. But Max is out for at least 6 weeks. And that is a big blow to the Dodgers because besides for them being, I'm sorry, America's team. I'm sorry, I should have said that to start out with. Um, but besides for Roki Sasaki being out for the season, besides for Tyler Glass now still being out, besides for Blake Snell being out, besides for River Ryan still being out, like the list goes on and on and on. Now Max to be out all of July and possibly portions of August, or I mean, portion of August. This is tough. This is real tough.
The rough part for Muncy though is he's in that stage of his career. He's already not super mobile, and a knee
Mhm.
injury like this could be a career ender. So,
Yeah, we hope not, but yeah, yeah,
I don't like saying it, but like he's already not, the fleetest of foot, you know, not he's got, to put it kindly, the concrete shoes over there at third base.
yeah. He's and then
But
and he's
it,
in
it,
his
it,
mid
it
thirties,
yeah,
and
it stinks, because you don't
yeah.
want guys to go out like that.
Well, and Z Jackson, not to be the bearer of bad news or not to be that guy, but I'm going to be that guy for a second. This is the only reason, only, and I still love the Shohei signing, but this is the only reason why the Shohei signing is a bad deal. Because when Max comes back, he has to play the field. If he doesn't play the field, he doesn't play because you're not going to bench Shohei. So this is one of those situations where if he doesn't play the field, he doesn't play. So he could be ready to come back in 6 weeks, but he might not be able to play third base.
Yeah.
You're not going to put him at first base because where are you going to put Freddie? So
I
if he
say I
can't
think
play,
Freddie's played some third base, but I would probably advise against doing that because the Dodgers are already shuffling around way too
uh,
many people out of position.
yeah, exactly. So, anyways, that's my number two. Max, get better, get rested, get well. We can't wait to get you back. What you got number three, Jackson?
Number three, I want to talk about the Diamondbacks aren't playing super well right now. I wanted to talk about Ketel Marte, who,
Ooh,
you know, is on a career trajectory, I think, to be the best second baseman of his generation.
ooh, ooh,
Yeah.
that's bold. That is a bold move, Jackson.
And he's hitting 300 right now, 18 home
Mhm.
runs, 400 on base percentage. He's just been really good, and he's been really good the last couple of seasons. And he's shown glimpses of it before, and in his mid 20s and stuff like that, putting up some seasons. But he's starting to hit his prime here in his early 30s. If he can rattle off, 4 or 5 seasons of even the caliber of what he had in 2023, he
Mhm.
might be in that Hall of Very Good, maybe Hall of Fame discussion at the second base position because there's not a lot of guys who slug like he does at second base.
Yeah, last season he had, I'm looking at this, 2023, he had 82 RBIs, 25 home runs. 2024, 36 homers with 95 RBIs. This season he's got 39 RBIs with 18 dingers.
Yeah, and
So
he missed time last year, and he's missed some time this year, and he's still been really, really good. And it's one of
we,
those things. Just kind of keep an eye on.
he's got 79 home runs in 2.5 seasons. So that's like you say, I didn't realize that those numbers were that big. Wow.
Yeah. So if he puts up another two, 3, 4 seasons like this, he's going to be in that like 300 home run range. Which for a second baseman, you got over an 800 OPS. That's looking pretty good.
Yeah, 100%. 100 and thousand and percent. I like that. Okay. Um, my number three, Jackson, is a team that now I'm going to go to the teams aspect of it. Is a team that people, it's kind of like that movie Major League, and I've said this on a few other podcasts. It's kind of like that movie Major League where the blue collar workers are looking at the lineup and they're going, "Who the f are these guys?" Can we ask and answer why Tampa Bay is so good? And you don't have a lot of players on that team that are household names. With the exception of one or two, you don't really have household names on there yet. They are just a couple of games behind the Yankees, and they got a shot to win the division. Win the division. Hmm. Talk to me.
I really like Tampa Bay's team composition. I think, uh, their scouting's the best in the MLB. They lose all their executives, the other teams, it doesn't matter. It's all their scouting pipeline. They find guys that produce. You talk about players like Taylor Walls, who weren't high ranked prospects, but is an incredible defensive shortstop. With a solid bat. But they do it with the top prospects. They hit on pretty much every guy they draft, real up high, or they sign in international free agency. You look at guys like Junior Caminero and Jonathan Aranda, and it's just like they don't miss when it comes to scouting. And we've had a lot of criticism of the Rays over the years here on Top Fan Rivalry about how they spend their money. And it really does make you wonder what this team could do if they had a bit more of a budget on them.
No, I agree. I mean, Junior is a perfect example. Junior Campanaro is hitting 259, 21 bombs, 53 RBIs, OPS 821. Now, that
And
doesn't
it's
sound
what,
like
20,
much.
22, 23 years old, something like that?
He's 21 years old. I was just going to say that. I mean, this dude is playing at the highest, and he's not playing, no disrespect, but he's not playing in one of the central divisions that right now aren't like the most powerful divisions. He's playing in the American League East, where you have Boston, you got to go into Fenway. You got to play. You got to play in New York Stadium or New York City with the Yankee Stadium. I mean, he's playing at a high level. 21 years old.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's crazy. They develop him. I hope he gets to be that centerpiece of their franchise for the next decade because he's a fun guy to watch.
I
He
will
goes,
say I will say that their roster makes me laugh though, because when we lived in another part of Orange County, we had some good friends named Brandon and Gina Lowe. Um, not Lau. It's spelled the same as Lau as Lowe, right? And one of their sons' name was Josh. Go to look up their lineup. They got a Josh Lowe and Brandon Lowe on their team. I think that's funny.
I believe it's Brandon Lau.
I know, but it sounds better Lowe. Oh, brother, please. So, anyways, Jackson, what you got for number four?
Number four, I'll stay in the AL East. Let's talk about the Toronto Blue Jays. They're right up there with the Rays and
Ooh,
the Yankees. And you want to talk about rosters of not really knowing who these are. The Blue Jays got some veteran pieces on their roster, but you look at this roster and it's mostly kind of just talent cobbled together around Vlad Jr. and Bo Bichette. But there's a lot of things I like about Toronto. I like their veteran pitching staff. Chris Bassett, Jose Berrios is fantastic pitchers. Kevin Gossman, Jeff Hoffman. Those are guys that are veterans in the league. They know how to pitch. They go out and they get it done. And I think that's what's been Toronto's advantage is they don't need, their starting pitchers to go out and shut anyone out. They just need to keep them in the game. And I kind of like that from a roster standpoint where you have guys that go out there, get your 6 innings, 3 runs, get that quality start, and you have a shot to win every game.
yeah, 100%. 100%. 100%. And what I love about what I love about these guys is they just, I mean, you've got the George Springers, you've got the offensive guys on there too, but they're playing with a lot of poise. I mean, they played the Yankees this week and they took care of business with the Yankees. Now they played at home. I mean, let's see what happens when they go into Yankee Stadium. But I mean, we're halfway through the season. We could see a fight between two teams that we didn't even expect to hear or talk about in Tampa Bay and Toronto for that division lead with the Yankees.
Uh, Remember, I said Toronto was a borderline candidate to lose 100 games before the year, and I'll put that foot in my mouth. They proved me wrong.
Yeah. Well, that foot will taste just fine with the A's as well.
Uh, They still got a shot. They're only how many games out are they now?
Yeah. Only 37 games out.
They're only
Yeah.
17. They're only 17 back. It is the AL West.
Eh. Oh brother, oh brother, oh brother. Okie dokie. Okie dokie. All right. So my number four warms my heart, Jackson. The like so I mentioned Max Muncy, I've mentioned Clayton Kershaw, I mentioned Tampa Bay. My number four warms my heart. That is the what seems to be the perpetual fall of the San Francisco Giants. I do not know what's going on over there. Coming in, I didn't look up there. I always do this when we record these things on Friday. I forget to look up what happened on Thursday. But on Thursday night before they started, they were 46 and 41. They were 3 and 7 in their last 10 games. Um, I think they're like 9 back of the Dodgers right now, or I'm sorry, shoot, I keep slipping. They're 9 back of America's team. Um, and so is it time? I mean, they're only a half game out, at least as of Thursday, they were only a half game out of the wild card. But is it time to for them to kind of look at things and go, maybe I panic? Because as of Thursday, Jackson, if if the playoffs started today, if the playoffs started today, your wild card teams would not include the Padres or the Giants.
It's true, but that's why you play all the games. Uh, I do think the Giants are kind of in a rough patch. Uh, the lineup's kind of gone cold. We talked about the Rafael Devers trade, how big that was for them. One guy can't carry a lineup. They're going to need more from the lineup as a whole. I think they're sorely missing Matt Chapman right now,
Uh-huh.
who was kind of the glue that held that lineup together. And to me, it just seems like they got to get to the All-Star break, but it's going to be rough. They got Oakland this weekend. Uh, should be a pick-me-up series, but they did get swept by the Marlins last week. So,
Yeah.
but then they got to play Philadelphia, and then they got to play the Dodgers right right before the All-Star break.
The who?
The Dodgers.
America's team? Got it. Okay, good. I just need to get you to, I mean, last year we talked early on about the Dodgers being the 2024 World Series champion, and it turned out to be the case. We just need to make sure that
I
this
was gonna
whole
say that
America's team
the
catches on.
blind squirrel does find a nut every once in a while.
Oh, here we go. Blind squirrel nut. Got it. Got
But
it.
you look for the Giants. I think it's going to be big out of the break. They go to Toronto
Hmm.
out of the All-Star break. They play Atlanta, which as a Braves fan, let me tell you, who knows what team you're going to play then. And then you're going to get the Met after that. So I think that the 9 games after the All-Star break are really going to tell you what direction they're trending. For the second half of the season, I think it's really going to set the tone.
Do the Giants, let me ask you a question about the Giants because I've been dying to ask somebody this question that has an understanding of the game. Rafi Devers trade was one of the bigger ones that the Giants have done in a number of years, right? They took on Rafi Devers, unloaded a bunch of people that are playing in Worcester, playing in AAA or have been released or whatever, but they unloaded that cash over to the Giants. Hypothetically, Jackson, if the Giants miss the playoffs, if they miss the playoffs, if they miss the playoffs, is there going to be some ticked off Giants fans looking and going, okay, what the heck? Now we got to pay 52 million or 54 million, whatever it is, to Devers and Chapman between the two of them. Like, it's too much. We're in trouble.
I don't think so. I think the Giants have been saving the money for a rainy day.
Okay.
They were in on Aaron Judge, and that tells me they were willing to spend that much money on a player. Devers is making less than Judge did. Uh, I think the bigger question for the Giants should be how are you going to support that going forward?
Yeah.
You got Devers now. You got to find a way to get Jung Hoo Lee and Elliot Ramos, guys like that. Better support than I don't like invoking his name because he always kills the Braves. Dominic Smith. Like, come on, we're running Dominic Smith out on our bench. Patrick Bailey's been bad at the plate, not behind the plate, really good. Willie Adames hasn't been that great. So it's really just kind of finding that offensive consistency, I think, for the Giants. I think, they have lots of really good veteran options on the mound. They have a bona fide ace in Logan Webb. It's really just piecing that offense together to be a playoff team. But
Mhm.
I don't think the Giants fans should panic if they don't make the playoffs this year because they unloaded a really bad Jordan Hicks contract in that trade to get Rafael Devers.
No, I agree with you, Jackson, but I mean, to some, I having been a Dodger fan, I'm sorry, America's team fan, as long as I have, and being that fan as long as I have, I I remember some of these bad trades and bad contracts and things like that. And these are back in the 90s when the contracts weren't huge like this, but it was almost like the Giants said, we want to compete now, and this is what we're doing. But if they don't compete now, then shake your head and go, huh? What just happened? So, anyways, that's my question about that.
Yeah.
Jackson, what do you got for number five?
Number five, you know, I want to talk about two teams on the downturn. I
Mhm.
the Mets have not been playing well, and the Guardians have lost. They're on a long losing streak. They're not playing well. And I guess the question poses is were their hot starts an illusion, Bill?
Hmm. I Guardians, yes, Mets, no. I honestly think that the Guardians, I don't know that the Guardians have enough to get to where they need to be, and Detroit is so good right now. Mind you, I remind Ashley from American League with Ashley every Monday when she talks about certain things. I remind her how the Detroit boys started out the season 0 and 3. So just and who they played when they started out 0 and 3. I mean, it's important for people to remember things like that, Jackson.
So what
No,
you're telling me is since going 0-3, they have the best record in baseball. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
yeah. No, they don't, but close enough. Close enough.
Well,
But
no,
the
because you'd have to
Mets,
take 3 wins away from the Dodgers.
yeah. Well, I mean,
Yeah,
the
that's
Mets, the Mets are not. The Mets are just they're just hitting the dog days. So, I think the Mets are going to compete for that division? Yes. Do I think that they're going to be either in the playoffs vis-a-vis the winning the division or the wild card? Yes.
I. So I wanted to know your thoughts because I think they were two very similar teams. Where
Oh, do tell.
both teams have really solid lineups, and I think the starting pitching is going to be the doom of both of them. Cleveland's lack of starting pitching, now with the Luis Ortiz suspension, uh, don't gamble, kids.
Yeah,
That's all I'm saying. And
don't
especially
gamble.
don't gamble as a professional athlete. It's dumb. Anyways, but the Mets, since their horrendous stretch in June, their starting pitching injuries are starting to rack up. Griffin Canning ruptured his Achilles tendon. It's already taxing a very taxed starting rotation. I know they might get some guys back later this month or next month, but I think the biggest worry is how much you use your bullpen. And
Mhm.
a couple, I know the Mets were really good in the second half last year, but you got to remember that, the prior 2 years of how the Mets started off hot and their bullpen faded down the stretch and it was their doom. You know, now as a Braves fan, I only get the little tiniest bit of pleasure saying that. You know, but as a neutral, someone who talks baseball, I think it's something to worry about that the starting rotation isn't stable, and you're throwing your bullpen out guys out there a lot, and you hit these dog days, and it starts to pile up, man.
Well, I'm gonna tell you right now, Jackson, that this is why I say that starting pitchers need to get you 18 outs. This is why it's so important that they get you 18 outs because if you have a bullpen that only has to get you, and 18 outs, obviously going through 6 innings, if you have a bullpen that only has to get you 9 outs on a consistent basis, they're going to be refreshed and they're going to be ready to go when the time is needed. If they consistently have to get you 12 outs, um, I know that's only three more outs, but there's a big difference in those two.
It,
Big difference.
well, yeah, and I think a lot of people underestimate the drop off behind a leverage arm that can pitch the seventh and a leverage arm that you would put in the fifth or sixth inning
Yeah.
at
Okay.
the major league level. It's unfortunately a very large drop off. Everyone thinks their worst relievers, their team's worst relievers, the worst reliever in baseball. Um, I'd like to remind you, it can always get worse. It,
Let
it
me just
most
tell you, it can always get worse.
it can always get worse. Trust me. It's I worry about the durability of their rotation now. That's kind of they've been trying to shield Clay Holmes on that inning limit. David Peterson's had some injuries in the past, and he hasn't been pitching well. Frankie Montas, is he kind of overcome his injury thing? So to me, the Mets just feel like this team on paper it looks really good, but in practice is Kim Minaya and Senga come back and carry the load.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
100%.
I don't know. The National League's it's tight.
Yeah. No, I listen, you're nailing it, Jackson. I'm laughing because you're trying to call you're you're calling it right. I just think that I don't know. I just think that the Mets will keep pace and turn it around. But it warms your heart to see them struggle, doesn't it?
Yeah, especially when they struggled against the Braves. It was nice of them to hand the Braves 5 wins. It was good. Highlighted the season.
Mhm. All right, Jackson, before we get on, we've got about 5 minutes left of the show. We just want to remind everybody to hit up topfanrivalry.com. There's a thing at the top of the page that is called TFR breaks, and those are every break that we do. Every other week, we do one with Mike from Heads Up Sports Cards. Every other week, we do one with the 27 Ounce Club. If you're not familiar with the 27 Ounce Club, for $27, you can guarantee your team, if they're still available, but it guarantees your team twice and two breaks. You get early access to the breaks that we do with Mike. You get a $5 off coupon every single month. So, Jackson, it's huge. If you're a box breaker, if you're a card collector, you want to be part of that card collecting atmosphere, it's the cheapest and easiest way to do it.
Yeah, you get in on those Nationals cards. Apparently, they're just sitting there.
They are. And Jackson, on our last break that we had with 27 Ounce Club, nobody took the Detroit Tigers. And I thought, oh, this is interesting because we did a 2021 high number, a heritage high number, and then a Donruss blaster box break. And the Donruss blaster box break was a hot box. And so it had a hit in every single one of them. We got a number of amazing cards in that, including I want to say we got oh no, it was the Topps Heritage that we got the Clubhouse Collection jersey relic of Castro, Willie Castro. So, and they had a number of great cards. So you can't blame them there. So,
Yeah.
all right, all right, Jackson. Here's my number five. This one also warms my heart tonight. I love seeing the San Diego Padres doing what they're doing. They're 5-5 in their last 10 games. They are 46 and 40. They're 8.5 games out of first place. And these are all numbers, I believe, starting Thursday. Jackson, you got to remind me to either start looking at numbers before we record on Friday morning or stop quoting numbers. But
I do the same thing too. I save the pages ahead of time so I don't have to scramble before.
yeah, we need to be better. Oh well. But anyways, Jackson, I got to tell you, man, these guys, this team is built to last, but they are getting further and further and further behind. And it is difficult when you're talking 8.5 games to start July. It's not an impossibility. But if you're 10 games back at the All-Star break, I would say that the team that you're chasing is probably got it in hand. Especially since the All-Star break is not especially since the All-Star break is not at game 81 anymore. It's typically around game 90, 91, 92, something like that. So,
Yeah.
yep, yep. Jackson, Padres, talk to me.
Uh, I'm worried about their bullpen too. All their high leverage.
Everybody's bullpen, Jackson.
Yeah. You're at that 35 plus appearance already, and you're not at 100 games yet. That's a lot, especially when you're putting guys like Robert. Robert Suarez is showing some cracks because he's got a lot of mileage on him. The
Mm-hmm,
last couple of years, the
mm-hmm.
Padres have been riding him in every big game, every high stretch situation. It's rough. It's hard to be a reliever, and I think the Padres are really just kind of missing Michael King in that rotation for stability. And Cease hasn't been great. He's been he's been okay. He's been mediocre. It's probably the best way I could describe him. ERA up over 4.5. Nick Pavetta's probably been their best starter who's healthy. But I really think the Padres pitching has done a good job holding together will hurt. But I think the bigger injuries for them have been the bats. You
Mm-hmm.
know, they've been banged up all year. Jackson Merrill's missed some significant time. Tatis and Machado have been banged up here and there. And you play hurt, it affects your results. And I think you're absolutely right. I think the Padres don't want to find themselves in the position where they fall too far behind because it's really tough with the division they play in to leapfrog people in the league they play in to leapfrog people when you have to play, tough games against wild card opponents pretty much every night.
Well, and what I don't like about the schedule, which hurts the Padres, but it helps the Dodgers. I'm sorry, dude, America's team. It helps America's team out. Is the Padres in June? The Padres and Dodgers played each other 7 times in June in like a 10-day span, which means they only go head to head 6 more times the rest of the season. So,
Well, San Diego's got it rough. They got, Texas today, 3 game series over the weekend, Arizona for 4, and the Phillies for 3 right before the All Star break.
mhm.
That's a rough, 10 games, no day off.
Yeah,
They're going to be limping into the All Star break.
yep, 100%, 100%. So, yeah, it's gonna be a tough one. It's gonna be a
Yeah,
tough one.
and I don't know who did the schedule because then they come out of the All Star break and it looks like they play 10 more in a row or 13 in a row without a day off of the
Mhm,
All Star break. That's rough.
mhm. Yeah, well, it is. Warms my heart, Jackson. Warms my heart. Okay, so a little recap before we get into honorable mentions. Jackson went through and talked about the Cobra, Dave Parker. He talked about Cal Riley and James Wood and the Home Run Derby. He talked about Ketel Marte in Arizona. He talked about the Toronto Blue Jays and the mighty Metropolitans and the Cleveland Guardians and their struggles. I talked about Kershaw. Hats off again to you for 3,000, Kersh. Max Muncy, Tampa Bay, San Francisco, and San Diego. So that gets us all the way through. Jackson, do you have any honorable mentions before we wrap the show?
I have a dishonorable mention.
Oh,
The Diamondbacks fan who's interfered with a play at like
oh.
4 straight seasons. Bro, get a life. That's my dishonorable mention. It's like, really, you're buying season tickets there and reaching over any ball that comes near.
I thought you were going to mention the fan who said some inappropriate things that were across the line. That I
Uh,
thought that's where you're going.
well, that guy too can never step foot in an MLB stadium again. Because come on, these are human beings playing a game for your entertainment.
Yeah,
There's no
yeah.
need to get super personal with the heckles. You
Mhm.
can say something funny about, what color sleeves they're wearing or their batting gloves. That's funny. It's
Yeah,
fun. But like you don't cross the line to the personal things. So I guess the dishonorable mention is fans this week do better.
yeah. The honorable mention that I'm gonna give is we learned here in LA that and normally I'm not this homerish, but 3,000 strikeouts is a big deal, right? We learned that Freddie Freeman was reminding Clayton after every start how many he had left. Apparently, they become really, really good friends. And if you see the reaction of Freddie the second that that ball's called a strike, he puts his hands up in the air long before Clayton does anything. That is, I mean, they're both Hall of Famers. Well, I can't guarantee that Freddie's a Hall of Famer, but I do think that Freddie's making his way
It,
towards
it,
Cooperstown.
he's chugging right along.
Yeah. Now, if he had a career-ending injury right now, I don't know that he's there yet. But
Uh,
I mean, it's tight. He's got
he played
2,300 hits. It's tight. There's a lot of guys that have more hits than him and have better, but
that's
you have the way that Mookie and Freddie embraced Clayton last night. All three guys are headed to their hall. I would be very surprised if all three guys didn't end up in Cooperstown. But what do I know, right? And so, yep, 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 yep. So that's my honorable mention for the night. Jackson, why don't you tell everybody what they can do with your name, what they can save with your name?
use code Jackson, get 10% off merch. You can get a hat that's cool like this, but it's not this exact hat because we don't got this hat no more. But
Yep.
we got cool hats in the shop. Use code Jackson, get 10% off. Don't pay full price for hats.
We are, Jackson, we are thinking about bringing back that Cooperstown hat as we speak. So
Oh,
be excited.
maybe it will come back, and then you can definitely get 10% off this hat because it is
Yes.
awesome. It is comfortable. It is, it's ventilated. You need that when you live on the East Coast and it's 97,000% humidity outside.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you got
100%.
you got that 10 out of 11 UV index or the 11 out of 11. You need a hat. So go get
Yeah.
one. Go get some
Yeah.
merch.
100%. All right, Jackson, thank you so much, everybody. Thank you. Enjoy your Friday. Enjoy happy 4th of July, everybody. Be
Yeah.
safe, eat a lot of food, hang out with family, and we will talk to you
Yeah. Eat
next
eat a
week.
lot of food, but do not compete with Joey Chestnut in a hot dog eating contest.
Yeah,
Ill
do not
advised.
do that.
Ill advised.
There you go. All right, Jackson, have a great day, and we will talk to everybody soon.